your health, our priority.
Well, a very good afternoon to you and welcome to the African News on Voice of the People Television. I am David Edwin. Before we begin the news, we would urge you to kindly visit our website, www.vop.ng, for fresh and trending stories. We begin the African news from the DR Congo, where Congolese negotiators have dropped a demand that Rwandan troops immediately leave Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, paving the way for a U.S.-brokered peace agreement to be signed between the longtime foes on Friday, four sources told newsmen. Rwanda has sent 7,000 soldiers over the border, according to analysts and diplomats, in support of the M23 rebels, who seized eastern Congo's two largest cities and lucrative mining areas in a lightning advance earlier this year. Rwanda has long denied providing arms and troops to M23 rebels and says it is acting in self-defense. Congolese and Rwandan officials are expected to sign a peace deal in Washington on Friday, following a diplomatic push by U.S. President Donald Trump's administration to end years of conflict with roots in Rwanda's 1994 genocide. The agreement also aims to attract Western investment to the two countries' mining sectors, which boast deposits of titanium, gold, cobalt, copper, and lithium, while giving the U.S. access to critical minerals. Moving on, Kenya's President William Ruto has issued a warning to the UN Security Council, expressing concerns about what he called the massive failure of the international community to meet its commitments. Ruto added that the development could lead Kenya to reconsider its engagement with a multinational security support mission, that's the MMSS, in Haiti. In a letter to Council President Mohamed Irfan Ali and UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, Ruto highlighted what he called the serious shortcomings in the support provided to the mission. He decried the fact that less than 40% of the planned 2,500 troops have been deployed due to lack of financial resources, adding that only 11% of the funding required for the first year has been received. Well, still in Kenya, in another development, Kenya's Interior Minister has denied that the police used excessive force during Wednesday's protest, in which at least 10 persons were killed, describing them as terrorism disguised as decent and an unconstitutional attempt to change the government. Kipchumba Murkomen thanked security agencies for their remarkable restraint amid extreme provocation, crediting them with helping to foil an attempted coup. In addition to the 10 deaths, more than 400 others were injured, including about 300 police officers, according to his statement. The minister condemned the demonstrations, saying criminal anarchists, in the name of peaceful demonstration, unleashed a wave of violence, looting, sexual assault, and destruction upon the Kenyan people. Elsewhere, soldiers in Togo used tear gas and baton on Thursday to disperse hundreds of protesters who blocked main roads in the capital to call for the resignation of long-term leader Faure Dasnibe, witnesses have said. The gathering, organized by bloggers and activists, highlighted persisting political strife in Togo, where last month Dasnibe was given the powerful new role of President of the Council of Ministers that has no fixed term limit. Dasnibe, whose family has ruled the Western African nation since 1967, had previously served for 2 decades as president, and opposition parties have described his new appointment as a constitutional coup that could extend his rule for life. Protest organizers called for 3 days of gathering, although participants on Thursday were quickly scattered by soldiers. In the suburb of the capital, Lome, some protesters burned wooden furniture and tires used to makeshift barricades, sending black smoke billowing above the streets. Togolese authorities arrested dozens of persons on June the 5th and the 6th during protests against Nasnibe's new rule, as well as what critics describe as a crackdown on decent and a cost of living crisis, according to Amnesty International. Many were quickly released, and according to the rights groups. Meanwhile, there are reports that say that about 500 police officers have marched in Pretoria to protest against sexual abuse within their ranks. The march was under the banner of the Police and Prison Civil Rights Union, Ipob, supported by COSATU and the Democratic Nursing Organization of South Africa. The demonstrators gathered in their signature red regalia at Burgers Park and marched to the office of the National Commissioner of Police, where they delivered a memorandum to demand that senior officers found guilty of sexual offenses be suspended. Ipob First Deputy President Musandimwamaje Veronica Mokogong said the union had received anonymous calls from trainees and police officers alleging sexual harassment and rape at the hands of senior officers. Moving on, Issa Chiroma Bakri, a prominent minister and longtime ally of President Paul Biya, has quit Cameroon's government in the hope of ending 92-year-old Biya's 4-decade grip on power in upcoming elections. Just 4 months before the Central African nation goes to the polls, Chiroma said that Biya's administration he belonged to had broken public trust and he was switching to a rival party. In his words, a country cannot exist in the service of one man. While he was communications minister, Chiroma notably came under fire by denying, then backtracking on his denial that Cameroonian soldiers had killed women and children in a viral video verified by newsmen. His other roles during almost 2 decades of government include being a spokesman for the Biya's government, and until his resignation on Tuesday, he was employed minister. Paul Biya, the world's oldest head of state, has yet to confirm, if he will attempt an 8th term as president. Last year, the country banned reports on the president's health following rumors he had died. As Cameroon's election approaches, high unemployment and soaring living costs are of concern to many citizens, as are corruption and security. Elsewhere, the Ugandan government says it is positioning the country to become the leading energy hub in the East African nation. It says the move is driven by growing regional power trade and strategic investments in energy infrastructure. Uganda already exports electricity to Kenya, Tanzania, and Rwanda. According to the Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, Irene Batabe, Uganda is intensifying efforts to strengthen cross-border interconnectors under the East African Power Pole framework. She said the government is determined to position Uganda as an energy hub in the East African region, adding that the government is keen under the East African Power Pole to build what she described as resilient systems. Uganda currently hosts the Independent Regulatory Board as the IRB of the East African Power Pool, a regional body established in 2005 to coordinate cross-border power trade and grid interconnection among nations of the Eastern African region. Well, we also have a breaking news here. A court in Kenya declares transfer of Nnamdi Kanu to Nigeria from Kenya illegal. And the High Court in Kenya, sitting in Nairobi, has declared the abduction and detention of Nnamdi Kanu from Kenya to Nigeria in June 2021 unlawful and illegal. The court also awarded compensatory damages of 10 million Kenyan shillings against the Kenyan government for gross violation of Kanu's fundamental human rights. Well, joining us now to make sense of these stories and more is Dr. Peter Anosike, who is Voice of the People TV's in-house political affairs analyst and an economist by profession. And also joining us all the way from Uganda is Barrister Edward Okwaro Omatakinye from Uganda, who is a legal practitioner and also a human rights activist. Gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you, Doctor. Barrister Edward, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you. Thank you.
Glad to have you in this conversation. Now, I'm going to start from the breaking news that just stormed to us just a couple of minutes ago, and I'm going to start with my studio guest. Interestingly, the High Court of Kenya, sitting in Nairobi, has declared today the abduction and detention of Nnamdi Kanu from Kenya to Nigeria in June 2021 as unlawful and illegal, and has awarded a compensatory damages of about 10 million Kenyan shillings, I beg your pardon, against the Kenyan government for that gross violations of Kanu's fundamental human rights. First off, how do you react to these kind of judgment of the High Court in Kenya?
Well, for me, it is positive. People used to say that the wind of justice grinds slowly.
Right.
Understand?
Right.
Because it's almost more than 3 years now that Nnamdi Kanu is in detention in Nigeria.
Okay.
So people that must have been asking why now? Why now? Because the federal government persecuting Nnamdi Kanu in Nigeria has closed their case.
Okay.
And I know that this issue was one of those that his own legal team presented, that he was unlawfully abducted from Kenya. And the court in Kenya has now affirmed it. So, to me, it is positive. It is positive both on the part of his legal team, then and on the part of justice. Okay. Because everybody has been asking why Kenya. Because Kenya seems to be playing that's a kind of Judas role in most of the things that's in Africa.
Okay.
So I remember the guy the guy that was arrested in Uganda was also from Kenya.
Right, the Kizza Besigye, opposition leader.
Sure. So then what it means that there's no, is it insecurity in Kenya, or that Kenyans are not protecting the people that enter their country in an awful way.
Okay, I like the parts you've just told now, and I'm going to go straight to Uganda. Barrister, you are a bit abreast about the situation of a Nigerian that was abducted, that's the word the court is using now, from Kenya to Nigeria, and of course he's still facing prosecution in Nigeria. You're in Uganda presently. There's also the issue of Kizza Besigye, the opposition leader, who of course is facing the same kind of conversation, but unfortunately he is being tried in a military court. From these judgments, what is your reaction as it stands?
Thank you, my brother. Now, what I want to say, number one, justice is actually now being served rightly to those victims, to the people who deserve it.
Right.
Nnamdi Kanu he deserved to be actually given justice. Mentioning something about Kenya, Kenya plays a role of actually a victim in Africa. It's actually getting to be known to everyone that Kenya cannot protect any politician. Kenya cannot protect any human rights. Kenya cannot protect anybody because if Kenya can go to that mile of not accepting the people who are in problems, who go for assistance in their own country,
right,
then it means Kenya is not a good place to be. Because Kenya has shown a very bad example, beginning from you, just as you have said, Nnamdi Kanu. We are talking about Kizza Besigye from Uganda.
Yeah.
We talk of opposition in Tanzania. It's also the same thing. Because he actually came to Kenya for asylum for some time, but he only found himself back in Tanzania, which was also an unfortunate thing. We have seen Kenya operating in a way of Judas, just as my senior in the studio says. Kenya plays in the hands as a Judas Iscariot, because it has shown Africa that it does not have friends. These are same leaders who will become tomorrow leaders. I don't know how Kenya will be looked at, because now looking at the situation, justice has been served properly. Okay. So Kenya remains in a situation whereby it has no voice anymore.
Well, I like the fact that you just used that the last line you just used, that Kenya has no voice anymore. But again, from the judgment of the High Court sitting in Kenya just a couple of hours ago, before this judgment, there is a conversation of a compensation of 10 million Kenyan shillings against the Kenyan government to, of course, the man who is in custody in Nigeria. Let's start from your position. Kizza Besigye is in the military court, being tried in military court in Uganda. From what you've seen from this judgment, is there a possibility that there might be a review of his own repatriation as well in Kenya as a result of these kind of judgment that just popped out from the High Court in Kenya?
You know, one thing I want you to know, when it comes like issues of court, a court operates in with facts.
Right.
So in this case, Besigye was actually abducted from Kenya, where he was holding meetings. To date, nobody has told the East Africans that indeed Besigye deserved to be tried in a military court because he had planned a war. There was no war Besigye had planned in Kenya. Kenya is not a country where you go and start a war. So Kenya will face its own consequences, and that will repeat just as today's judgment. It is going to repeat the same way. So that probably in the future, leaders have to learn that we need to accommodate each other. It doesn't matter whether you're in a government, whether you are not in a government, but you need to accommodate each other. So it is going to repeat just as you have asked me. It will be the same history. Probably Kenya needs just to learn from that.
All right, well, I'm going to come to the studio here. Doctor, interestingly, this conversation of having to pay compensation of over 10 million Kenyan shilling to, of course, the man who is presently in detention in Nigeria. Do you think that Kenya acted on some other orders from the government of Nigeria at the time? Because the word being used in court right now is he was abducted. So looking at abduction holistically, has bilateral relation between two countries carry any weight for these kind of abduction to be carried out?
Well, it is an infringement that's on the part of the abducted.
Right.
Because he did not enter Kenya as a criminal. He entered as a Nego, as a lawful citizen.
Right.
Understand? So, but in this case, Kenya played a role in the kidnapping, abduction, and the illegal extradition, because he was arrested, detained in Kenya for many days before being
repatriated
to Nigeria.
Right.
So Kenya has a hand in this. Kenya has a hand in this because for him to be detained, I'm sure individuals don't have detention centers in Kenya.
Okay.
So it's only government that has the detention centers, but he was beaten, handcuffed in
Right.
Kenya, understand me, treated subhumanly before being taken to Nigeria. And there's no amount. That's why that word compensation.
Right.
Compensation doesn't mean a full price because there's no amount that is equal to infringing on somebody's human rights.
Okay.
There's no amount, understand me?
Right.
That can be said it's enough on infringing on his human rights. Because in this thing, Nnamdi Kanu lost his mother and his father.
In the mix of all of this
In
conversation.
the midst of all this.
Right.
So how much can you pay as a price for the loss of a father and a mother?
Oh, well.
And all the injustices that have been going in since 2021 up to today.
Doctor, I'm still going to come to you. Interestingly, the presiding judge, Justice E.C. Mwita, in its judgment, faulted both the Nigerian and Kenyan government for the rendition of Kanu in gross violation of his rights as guaranteed by the constitutions of Kenya. Now, the conversation around gross violation of their human rights is on one path. Let's talk about the fact that the Nigerian government has closed the case of the man Nnamdi Kanu presently, and of course, everybody's expecting to hear what comes next after now. Do you think that this kind of judgment from Kenya could have a ripple effect on the judgment that might, of course, be melted on him in Nigeria?
Well, the truth is that a court does not grant what is not asked of him.
Right.
And judgments are passed based on the evidence before the court. So this judgment has not come when that case was being argued. Understand? But the illegal rendition is one of the matters that Nnamdi Kanu legal team presented. But judgment has not been given. But this is a proof. Understand? A sure proof that abduction was illegal.
Right.
Understand me?
Right.
So this is a sure proof that Nnamdi Kanu's abduction is illegal and from a competent court, not in Nigeria, but in Kenya,
where he was repatriated.
Sure.
All right, well, let's get back to Uganda. Barrister, again, we have your country in the news, and interestingly, the government of Uganda has said that it's repositioning the country as East Africa's energy hub. First off, what's your reaction to these kind of conversation? I know you have a bit of exception to this kind of conversation because I recall that you did say that it's close to election month and some of these things look like a political statements coming from the sitting government of Yoweri Museveni. But then let's hear your opinion and reaction to these conversation of having to become East Africa's energy hub.
Yes, Uganda has been all the time in history actually supplying part of the energy in most of the East African neighbors countries.
Right.
That one is no doubt. But let me tell you something. Uganda is one of the nations, one of the countries you cannot understand well in business. There are some of these agreements which are done in dark because what should be that agreement meaning to the economy of Uganda is the development of the country, which I can tell you for sure that Uganda is still very far in development. Looking at supplying Kenya alone, almost around 288.27 million KW. That is is it kilowatts? Kilowatts, exactly. I'm a legal person now. Kilowatts. So you can imagine Kenya all along survives in Uganda, but some of these agreements were done in darkness. not in goodness of the people of Uganda. Because Uganda is a rich country, yes, but where is this riches go? This riches goes to very few people, which is leaving now the country to be just a bit desperate in leadership, actually. So the leadership itself is not sincere to its citizens.
Okay, well, interestingly, I like the fact that you did use this word, not sincere, but then you did mention that Uganda is a rich country, but in the reality of it, the people are not enjoying what it is in the reality. But then the Minister for Energy and Mineral Development, I'm talking about Irene Batebe, did say that they are intensifying efforts to strengthen cross-border interconnectors under the East African Power Pool framework. I don't know if you have an idea of this framework, but my question now would be, when it comes to interconnectors, a lot of persons would say, with all of the countries around Uganda that takes power from Uganda, is it the possibility that they are paying even much more than what the Ugandan people have as an idea? Because the statement of not having trust on the government and the contract that the government has with other countries seem to be at the forefront. So what is your position about these kind of conversation coming from the Minister of Energy and Mineral Development?
You see, according to what I know, yes, Uganda would be benefiting a lot when it comes like electricity and other issues. Uganda is one of the countries you can enjoy very good food. That's why I'm telling you, Uganda is a rich country.
Okay.
But when it comes to the management, to the administration, which people have entrusted, it is where the problem lies. You get only selling to Kenya such amount of electricity coming from Uganda, and you get Uganda in itself is actually paying more than what the person who has bought its electricity. So it's a bit confusing. You cannot even understand. Ugandans pay a lot, high. They really pay high in most of these things. They are talking of the electricity. It's too high in Uganda. Right. It's the reason why you get that. Even the investors themselves, I don't think whether they feel good to be in a place where you get that you charge them too much. So I don't think whether that conversation it can really convince anybody. Okay. So according to us, I don't think so.
Oh, well, let me come to the studio now. Doctor, interestingly, this conversation seems to be what you are a bit aware of, particularly using Nigeria as a case study. Nigeria also have a way of course, selling power generation to other countries across and countries that are close to it. Nigeria and the likes. Yes, now, looking at the fact that these kind of contracts, like he did mention, are shrouded in several secrecies and you cannot really pinpoint what really is the reality. Do you think that the secretary of, the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral in Uganda, saying that the country is trying to position itself as the power energy hub of East Africa, is anything to go by? With the fact that the barrister did mention now that Uganda is rich, but the people cannot feel that.
Uganda is rich, actually, and that's what was something that struck me last year, 2024.
Okay.
I googled the 12 best universities in Africa. Right. In 2024, a university in Uganda is there, none from Nigeria.
Oh wow! Okay.
Do you understand me?
Okay.
A university in Uganda is there. A university in Uganda is there, none from Nigeria.
So visibly, Uganda is rich.
So which means that maybe they could be investing in their education. Understand me?
Okay.
Because. To rate a university is not because of buildings. It's the quality of research and so on and so forth. But it seems that leaders in Africa have one philosophy: charity begins at our way.
Oh, wow.
Understand me?
Right.
And so Nigeria and Uganda in the same situation. We have crude oil. We are exporting to other countries, but other countries are buying cheaper than us. Understand me?
Right.
When the price of crude oil arises in the international market, here we pay more. Why we are the one exporting?
Quite an unfortunate situation, Doctor.
Understand me?
Quite an unfortunate situation, really.
So it's just they are practicing a charity begins at our way. You don't enjoy what God has given to you, but other people enjoy it at a cheaper rate.
Well, I like that line, charity begins from away, but that does not seem to be the conversation in Cameroon, where the president, close man, I'm talking about Issa Chiroma Bakri, prominent minister, and of course, long-time ally of President Paul Biya, has quit his most funded government. Doctor, from your perspective, what do you think, aside what the man is saying as his reason, what do you think might be the reason for his wanting to leave the government right now?
Well, maybe he wants to become a president too. That could be the only reason, because now a 40-year-old man in Cameroon don't know any other president than Paul Biya. So for the past 40 years, since 1984 till date, one man has been in power. So you can see how
and he's 92.
92, and he still wants to go again.
Okay.
He still wants to go again. And how articulate is a 92-year-old man? So you can see this will also be affecting the psyche of his own people. Okay. Understand me? Because this president now is outdated in everything, in AI, in technology. What can he do? So maybe this guy has seen the shortcomings and said, no, let me join the people in the opposition and see what I can do.
I'm going to come back to you, Doctor, because I have a particular question to ask you. But let me go straight to Uganda. Barrister, interestingly, Mr. Chiroma has said that Paul Biya's administration that he belonged to has broken public trust, and he was switching to a rival party. My in-house analyst here did say that there is a possibility that he possibly wants to be the next president. He said something quite interesting. Over 40 years and counting, Paul Biya is still the president of Cameroon. You are also in a country where a man has said he's still going to be in power. I mean, he's gone in for presidency. What do you react to all of this? What's your reaction to all of this conversation about staying so long in power and losing public trust?
It is indeed interesting. You know, when it comes to leadership, they start positioning themselves early enough. So just as the doctor said in the studio, for me, I'm also seeing that is a kind of a strategy a politician can always use, because after seeing the failures from where you have come from, and you see that now the population is total against what you have been, all the programs you have been in. So there's nothing remaining apart from you positioning yourself so that now you see what the next future will be. And that is exactly what is happening in Cameroon. Yes. So that is just positioning in politics.
Okay. Now, positioning in politics, in his words.
Now, just as you, before you continue,
yeah.
Now you have talked, Uganda is one of the countries we should be leading by example.
When you say leading by example, what do you mean by that?
I'm actually now, I celebrated my 40th year just recently, and I was actually now born at the time the president was coming in power. That is exactly what we are looking at. So we really need now to clean Africa. There should be a program to clean Africa. We need leaders in Africa to wake up. Let's leave leadership just as you see chaos everywhere in Africa. Africa needs young blood. Let's leave Africa for young people. That would actually now make Africa change. Yes.
Okay. Well, let me come back to the studio. Doctor, interestingly, Mr. Chiroma did say a country cannot exist in the service of one man. That's a whole lot of statements that if you want to dissect it, you have several things to talk about it. But let's stay with that statement. From his position as someone who's been the information minister under Paul Biya before leaving his position to want to join the rival opposition party, is there the possibility that aside from wanting to be, maybe, his ambition of being the president, he also feels the man, Paul Biya, has nothing to offer the people of Cameroon again?
One, mentally and physically, he's out of it. Understand? Mentally and physically, he doesn't know the current realities in the world. Understand me? So, and America, where other countries are borrowing their democracy, made it just 2 terms of 4 years, 8 years.
Right.
Understand me?
Right.
And it's only one man that has succeeded in doing 3 terms in the United States. Understand?
Yeah.
But under a controversial situation. So 8 years you are off. So staying in power in economics, that's what is called diminishing returns.
Right.
It's a reality. Nobody can run away from it. So Museveni in Uganda is suffering from diminishing return. Paul Biya is suffering from diminishing return. Paul of Kigami, what's his name?
Paul Kigami.
Paul Kigami. Many African presidents. So many African presidents.
I like the fact that you said so many African presidents, and I'm going to still stay with you. Interestingly, protesters went into the streets in Togo, because we're shifting gears to Togo now, and of course soldiers did break up protesters against the long-term leader. You would also recall that for a couple of weeks ago, the parliament in Togo did, of course, I don't want to use the word install, but that's what it is, install their long-term leader, Nnamdi. And this is to the position of having to stay for a lifetime. How would one man, and this goes across almost some of the African countries, why is this consistently happening in countries that, needless to say, needs a lot of development as it stands?
In the primary school, when we were doing social studies, it is his father that we are taught.
Honestly,
understand me?
So,
the same family ruling a country of millions of people. To me, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because what makes a country develop is teamwork.
Right.
Different ideas. Understand? And leadership is like building a house. Somebody will come and lay that the foundation. Another person will come and put the walls.
More like a continuum.
Sure, another person will come and now put the roof.
Right.
One person must not do all. But in Africa, you see that an individual will want to do all. When he is tired or died, his son or daughter would take over.
Okay, let's go to Togo before we round up I beg your pardon, Uganda, before we round up this conversation. Barrister, interestingly, Nnamdi was given the powerful new role of president of the Council of Ministers that has no fixed term limit. From all of this, even as you give your concluding thoughts, what do you think the people of Togo can do better to want to change the narrative, aside the protest, which of course has been visited with soldiers afterwards?
I think people of Togo are really expressing their dissatisfaction It is the reason why you see, just as we talk about Africa in general, the sickness is moving around, and that sickness is now you are letting people taking power by themselves and taking back power by themselves, because I believe Africa would be one of the continents which we should be using one kind of a constitution. And this constitution would be actually guiding us as Africans.
Okay.
We have been called so many names by these colonies, whereby they actually see our weakness. But we have seen our weakness, but we can't actually resolve our own problems.
Quite
So
unfortunately.
the leaders themselves have decided to close their minds. That is what I'm going to tell you. The leaders of Africa need to wake up and listen to their people, listen to their citizens. It's the same thing in Kenya, the same thing in Togo, same thing in where. So that is Africa for you. So we need to wake up as people.
Quite unfortunately, but then we would have to continue the conversation, because yes, this is about how best we can change the narrative across Africa. Thank you so very much for being here, Barrister Edward Okwaro Omatikin. We've been talking with him all the way from Uganda. Barrister Edward is also a human rights activist as well as a legal practitioner in Uganda. Also in the studio here we have with us, we've been talking with us, Dr. Peter Anosike, who is Voice of the People TV's in-house political affairs analyst and an economist by profession. Once again, thank you so very much, gentlemen, for being here.
Yeah, thank you for
Thank you so very much, Doctor. And of course, thank you, Barrister, for being here as well. Well, we're going on a quick break right now. When we return, the rest of the African news will continue with business and sports after this quick break. Do stay with us.
We encourage you to click on the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are Voice of the People TV. Also follow us on all our social media platforms. We are at VOPTV Live. Visit our website www.vop.ng for fresh and trending news. Also
We're glad to have you back. It is still the African news right here on Voice of the People television. Now to more stories. Senegal has revised its 2025 budget deficit upward to 7.82% of gross domestic product from an initial forecast of 7.08%, according to the draft revised finance bill. The increase is attributed to a drop in projected revenues and a downward revision of nominal GDP. The draft bill said it cited global economic headwinds and domestic fiscal adjustments as key factors behind the revision. According to the bill, this development is mainly explained by a decline in budget revenues combined with a downward revision of the nominal GDP. Economic growth in the West African nation, which recently started producing oil and gas, is now expected at 8.0% compared with the previous forecast of 8.8% in 2025. Moving on to talking business, the South African rand was largely flat in early trade on Friday after sharp falls a day earlier, with traders keeping an eye on a potential disruptive dispute between President Cyril Ramaphosa and his main coalition partner. The currency was 0.1% higher against the dollar at 17.8550 at about 9:47 hours GMT, a day after Ramaphosa of the African National Congress ANC fired the Deputy Trade Minister from the Democratic Alliance DA without giving a reason. DA spokesperson Karabo Karhau told newsmen that Ramaphosa has until 13:30 hours GMT on Saturday to either reinstate their member or remove 3 ANC members who the DA says are implicated in corruption. Commerbank's analyst Vod Kabor noted that this tension going into the weekend could weigh heavily on the local currency. And to wrap up the African news, we'll go straight talking sports. Barthélemy Ngansono has been named the head coach of Congo's national team as the country prepares for the 2024 African Cup of Nations Championship, that's CHAN, in a major technical overhaul by the Congolese Football Federation, FECAFOOT. Ngansono's appointment marks a return to national duty for the tactician who previously led the senior Red Devils and now steps into a pivotal role as Congo's eye, their fifth appearance at the CHAN finals. He will be supported by assistant coach Cedric Nanite-Lamio, both of whom recently earned CAF A coaching licenses, aligning Congo's ambition with continental standards. The decision by FECAFOOT to completely revamp their coaching structure, retaining only physical trainer Eric Mokonyo from the previous setup, underscores a desire to reset and re-energize the team's prospects ahead of the tournament in East Africa this August. The 2024 CHAN will be hosted jointly by Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania from August the 2nd to August the 30th under the Pajoma East African Initiative. Congo has been drawn into Group D, widely considered the competition's group of death, featuring reigning champion Senegal, West African giants Nigeria, and Sudan. Still talking sports, Faith Kipyegon fell short of her bid to become the first woman in history to run a sub-4-minute mile in a specially staged mile race in Paris. The 31-year-old Kenyan clocked 4 minutes, 6 seconds, 42 hundredths of seconds in perfect conditions at Stade Chalais in Paris, a time 1.22 seconds faster than a world record in pursuit of the momentous feat. The time will not be recognized as an official record because Kipyegon was assisted by a team of male and female peacemakers and with technologically advanced kits and shoes at the Nike-sponsored Breaking 4 event. Kipyegon's official women's mile record of 4 minutes 07 seconds, 47 hundredths of a second, set in July 2023, remains almost 5 seconds faster than any other female athlete in history has run for the distance. Kipyegon completed a third lap in 3 minutes, 1 second, 84 hundredths of seconds, but her hopes of achieving the target gradually faded in the final 400 meters. She still ran through the finish tape in the fastest time in history by a woman before collapsing to the ground. And with that story, we've come to the end of African News right here on Voice of the People Television. Do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel. On YouTube, we are at Voice of the People TV, and on all other social media platforms, we are at VOP TV Live. Thank you so very much for being a part of this broadcast. I am David Edwin. Do have a good afternoon.